Hi everyone, welcome back to the Model 3 Man channel. I'm Peter Levy. Investor Day has come and gone. And what are we left with? I've got 5 very significant, very important takeaways that we can get from that very lengthy 3.5-hour presentation, distilling it down to give the essence. There are 5 things we can take away from that Investor Day that are highly significant to Tesla's future. Now, first of all, I have to confess on a personal level, immense disappointment, and I know that it was shared by many others, that we did not get to see the Generation 3 new $25,000 vehicle, the so-called Model 2. We didn't get to see it, and with 2 daughters, both of whom are waiting patiently for that vehicle, it was a disappointment, not going to lie. But I think that if we look at Investor Day in its totality, it was an incredible insight into why Tesla is truly going to be literally the only EV car company that will expand and explode over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Let me run through my 5 takeaways very quickly before going into some detail. Number 1, they've never forgotten about the master plan. The need to move the world to sustainable, renewable energy with the storage capability that generated energy can be stored until it's used by the customers. Takeaway number 2, the leadership bench is very deep indeed. The whole of this 3.5-hour presentation was taken up with individual leaders of the different Tesla sectors, coming forward and sharing what's happening in their departments. 10, 12 different leaders come up and share with us how they're improving aspects within their own domain, for example, manufacturing or drivetrain development. Number 3, innovation and cost reduction. Every one of these leaders who came forward and shared with us stressed the constant innovation that was going on in their departments, the use of software that they custom build, to innovate, and innovate, which results in cost reduction, space reduction, equipment reduction, deleting processes, all of that through innovation and cost reduction. The 4th takeaway, the incredible drive for growth. We're sitting at between 1 and 2 million vehicles a year at this point in time. Tesla's goal is 20 million vehicles in totality every year.
4 factories, not enough. If we want to hit the 20 million car a year target, we're going to keep building new factories, new lines, and that will come up with new product as well.
And they're showing every evidence, giving every sign here. They are consumed with the need to reach that goal.
Probably the most significant announcement of the day is that we're excited to announce that we're going to be building a gigafactory in Mexico. So yeah, and we'll have obviously a grand opening and groundbreaking and whatnot. But we're excited to announce that the next Tesla Gigafactory will be in Mexico near Monterrey. So super excited about it. Now I do want to emphasize we will continue to expand production at all of our existing factories, so including California, Nevada, here in Texas, obviously, and Berlin, Shanghai. So we intend to increase production at all factories, so the Giga Mexico would be supplemental to the output of all the other factories. So this is not, to be clear, moving output from anywhere to anywhere. It is simply about expanding total global output. Yeah.
Takeaway number 5. This is important. A new manufacturing process. When Henry Ford invented the production line, the car started off at the beginning of the production line. Things were added as it moved along the line. It kept on down the line. And if something happened at one point, the production came to a halt. We've worked that way for 90 years, but it's changing. Tesla is inventing a new manufacturing paradigm.
The traditional way of making a vehicle is this. You stamp it, you build a body in white, you paint it, and you do final assembly. If something goes wrong in final assembly, you block the whole line, and you end up with buffering in between. This is at the tail end of its manufacturing optimization. Henry Ford first invented this assembly line in 1922. It's been 100 years, and it's really hard to make a change after 100 years. And when you watch it happen, it's actually really silly to a guy like me. You take all these stamp panels, you put them together, then you put them in a framing station, you build a body that looks something like a car, you put the doors on, and then you paint them. Once you get the color, you take the doors off, and then you start putting the interior inside the car. It comes in through the openings that already exist. I wish it went in like this big piece like this, but there's actually people coming in and out of the car. There's awkward movements. Then we lift the car up, we put stuff from underneath it, we put it down, then we put the seats in the car, and finally we close it all out with glass and we bring those doors that went away for a trip and we put them back in the car. Most of the time, we're doing this with a big giant car and moving it and doing really nothing to it at all.
What's funny, though, in this kind of whole process is that just recently Toyota just called this an engineering work of art.
True.
The Model Y.
That was humbling, but at Tesla, it's not good enough. If we're going to scale the way we want to do, we have to rethink manufacturing again. As part of the master plan, we have to make another step change in cost. We started this on Model Y when we made these huge gigacastings, and we deleted hundreds of parts. We simplified assembly with the Model Y structural battery, where we decided the floor should be a part of the car. The battery is the floor. We put the seats and the interior on the battery, and we bring it up through a big open hole, and we assemble it. And this allowed us to do things in parallel, fully rethinking the process and reducing the final assembly line by about 10%. And we thought, maybe we could do this other places. So when you think about what I'm trying to say, I really want to hammer this home. When you have a car that's about 5 meters long, and you have people working around it like we did in Model 3, and we change that to this process where we take different parts of the car, and we can do more at the same time, like we did with the Model Y structural battery pack. What you see here is us doing that on the front part of the vehicle, or the rear part of the vehicle. That means we can get more people working on the car, or robots, working on it at the same time. That means we have better operator density, less time doing nothing. We get 44% more operator density, which means more work, less time walking back to the station, 30% improvement in space-time efficiency. And because we're not building it in and out of the car with those slow movements of those robots I showed you from production hell, when we go to automate it, it's going to be a lot easier. In the end, that will probably look something like this, where we balance parallel and series manufacturing in a way where we only do things that are necessary, with a much shorter final line, blocking a lot less of the entire rest of the factory, so we can optimize material flow using the best practices. And what that means, it's going to look something like this, where we build all the sides of the cars independently, we only paint what we need to, and then we assemble the parts of the car once and only once. We put them where they need to go. The interior is attached from a bottom-up or a top-down strategy, so there's more access for those robots and people. We aren't moving heavy objects around and doing nothing to it, and it means we're doing more work on the car more of the time. And then, when we take all of these tested sub-assemblies and we put them together, we finally assemble the car only one time, putting the sides on with all of their parts to a front and rear that was already assembled, carrying the floor in with the seats, and finally boxing it out with the doors one time, just like Cybertruck. So in the end, you get the same car, but it's not going to be a Model Y.
Yeah, this is not. Yeah. This is a Model Y for illustration, not the next-gen vehicle.
In the end, what does that mean? To increase the scale and adoption of electric vehicles on the orders of magnitude that we just showed you, we have to make constraints part of the solution. It leads us to greater than 40% reduction in footprint, which means we can build factories faster, with less CapEx and more output per unit. Faster, less CapEx, more output per unit dollar.
There they are. The master plan continues. Leadership bench is deep. Innovation and cost reductions are the center of Tesla's existence. Growth is always ongoing and never slows down. And number 5, changing the way manufacturing is done. I think at the end of this, you're going to realize that This is a company that has no competitors that are just about to catch up and overtake them. And anyone who says that is completely ignorant of what's actually going on at Tesla. And they should sit and watch this presentation 3, 4, 5, 6 times until it finally sinks in. Number 1, the master plan.
Master plan part 3. The thing that I think is we wanted to convey, probably more importantly than anything else that we talk about here, is that there is a clear path to a sustainable energy Earth. It doesn't require destroying natural habitats. It doesn't require us to be austere and stop using electricity and sort of be in the cold or anything. There is a clear path to a fully sustainable Earth with abundance. In fact, you could support a civilization much bigger than Earth, than much more than the 8 billion humans could actually be supported sustainably on Earth. I'm just often shocked and surprised by how few people realize this. Most of the smart people I know actually don't see this clear path. They think that there's not a path to a sustainable energy future, or at least there's not one that is sustainable at our current population, or that we'd have to resort to extreme measures. None of this is true. So we're going to walk through the calculations for how to create a sustainable energy civilization.
That part of the presentation started at 29:20. Yes, they were pretty late getting started, but what's new? And ended at 58 minutes and 8 seconds. In other words, a total of about 30 minutes spent on talking about the master plan.
If you have a gasoline car, you're converting less than a third, often maybe only 25% of the energy in the gasoline is converted into motion. The rest is turned into waste heat. That doesn't do any good at all. And there's a lot of energy required even to get the oil out of the ground, to refine the oil, and to transport the gasoline to the gas station. So when you look at all that, for a typical gasoline car is actually going to be using less than 20%, fully considered, of the energy from the oil actually goes into motion. When we see people doing calculations for what does it take to create a sustainable energy Earth, they assume that the same energy amount is required in an electrified civilization versus a combustion civilization. This is not true. Most of the energy of combustion is waste heat.
So this is one of the most enabling aspects of electrifying everything, is that the sustainable energy economy is that much easier to accomplish. It's actually half the problem statement of the fossil fuel economy.
Yeah, and we're being conservative here, so it could be better than half, but we're trying to have assumptions that are reasonable, not overly optimistic, in fact, slightly pessimistic. So it's really better than half, but just say it's easy to make the argument that we need half as much energy with an electric economy versus a combustion economy. The thing that is needed at very large scale that is not currently present is a vast amount of battery energy storage. Our rough calculations are that this is about 240 terawatt hours, or 240,000 gigawatt hours. If you look at the total world economy, it's just under 100 trillion. So if this was spread out, say over 10 years, it would be 1% of the global economy. Over 20 years, it would be 0.5% of the global economy. So this is, not a big number relative to the global economy. In terms of wind and solar, how much land would be used? It's less than 0.2% of the land area of Earth. Generally, people don't realize quite how much energy is reaching us from the sun. It's roughly a gigawatt per square kilometer. Anyway, the point is that with a really a remarkably small amount of Earth's land area, we can go fully sustainable.
The master plan is still the uppermost concern in Elon's mind. Tesla is still working toward the maximum contribution that Tesla can make to the master plan that will see the world go off fossil fuels and depend upon renewable energy. Takeaway number 2, the leadership bench. So a lot of the criticism of Elon has come from, well, he's just bought Twitter. Now he's focused on Twitter. He's being unfaithful to Tesla. How can he go out with 2 girls at once? And he's got to dump the one and go with the other. No, he doesn't have to. Tesla demonstrated in no uncertain terms the depth of the leadership bench that currently operates every facet of Tesla's operations. That bench is incredibly deep, filled with people who are knowledgeable, intellectual, effective on the ground. Everyone in Tesla who runs the various departments is also a great implementer of the policies for that department. Tesla is not a one-man show. Investor Day was an attempt to demonstrate that the depth of the bench at Tesla is sufficient to run Tesla on its own. And Elon provides guidance, provocative questioning, stimulation, pressure to achieve. He provides a lot of things that make Tesla successful, but it's being run by a very capable bench. We had Franz von Holzhausen come out, and naturally we know that he helped design all of the cars we've had up to now.
Hi, I'm Franz. I lead design at Tesla.
And I'm Lars. I've been doing vehicles with Franz for almost 13 years now.
So I joined Tesla in 2008 to vertically integrate design into the company. It didn't exist before. It was a pretty small team. It was tasked with designing the most beautiful, innovative, and well-engineered vehicles on the planet. No small task in 2008. There was not a lot going on in the EV sector then. Since then, we focused on constant improvement in cost, efficiency, innovation, things that you'll continue to hear about today, while continuing to design the most desirable cars.
And he expressed his sadness that he was not able to share the new model design just yet.
I think our track record proves that we can deliver the best cars, and we deliver the best cars in spite of, because of these constraints. And I'd love to really show you what I mean and unveil the next-gen car. But you're going to have to trust me on that until a later date. And I promise we'll always be delivering exciting, compelling, and desirable vehicles, like as we always have.
Have we ever not? We
Yeah.
always do.
We had to just quell our disappointment at that and see how much we could get out of the rest of the presentation. Colin Campbell talked about powertrain development, the motor and the battery.
My name is Colin Campbell, and I have the real privilege of leading powertrain engineering here at Tesla. We make the fastest cars that you can buy for the money, whether they're electric or gas. And the Model S Plaid that we're looking at here, it has more than 1,000 horsepower, and pound per pound, the motors in that car are as powerful as jet engines. And the other thing that you probably all know about our powertrains is that they're efficient. Our cars go 25 to 30% further than other EVs in our class for the same amount of efficiency. Now, the Model 3 and Y powertrain is a great example of this broader meaning of efficiency. So since we launched it back in 2017, we've continuously improved that powertrain and the factory that builds it. So the drive unit, the engine of the car, is 20% lighter for the same power. We use 25% less heavy rare earths than when we started. The powertrain factory, which is behind me today, is 75% smaller and 65% cheaper than the one that we originally built. So in addition to the work that we've done in hardware, we've also done a lot of work in-house on software. So this is the drive unit for Model 3 and Y, and if we take a cross-section, we see the stator and the rotor, and they're responsible for the core function of the drive unit, which is converting electricity into motion. And our custom software lets us simulate the rotating magnetic field that is responsible for that conversion. And getting that simulation exactly right, it's central to the cost, the weight, the size, and even the sound of the drive unit. And now, you can buy software that will do all of this, but our tools are faster, and they're more accurate, and that was not easy to do. And that allows us to quickly iterate through millions of possible drive unit designs to find the best one. When you are making a new product, it's not enough to think about the product itself. You have to think about how you're going to make it at scale. So at Tesla, our powertrain and our powertrain manufacturing equipment is both designed under one roof. The engineers who are designing the motor, they are in the same room as the engineers who are designing the machine that's going to put that motor together. And that collaboration pushes us from day one to design products that are not only high performance, but are really easy to assemble. In our next powertrain, So those silicon carbide transistors that I mentioned that are key component but expensive, we figured out a way to use 75% less without compromising the performance or the efficiency of the car. And of course, we know that battery cell supply is one of the constraints on the scalability of EVs right now. Our new powertrain is compatible with any battery chemistry. If we want to make EVs more accessible to people, they have to be cheaper. We've reduced the drive unit cost to about $1,000, and we don't think any other automaker is even close to that number. Finally, the bigger a factory is, the longer it takes to build. If we can build the same number of cars from a smaller factory, we are going to be able to scale EV production faster. Our next powertrain factory is 50% smaller than the one that's behind me today, even though it has the same capacity. So I talked about how we had reduced the amount of rare earth in our powertrains. So we want to do even better than this. We have designed our next drive unit, which uses a permanent magnet motor, to not use any rare earth materials at all.
Pete Bannon. He talked about the electronic architecture, in other words, the wiring, the controllers, the connectivity, the network of features within the car.
Pictured here is the low voltage system of a Model S from 2012. This car was primarily designed with vendor source controllers integrated by Tesla. The low voltage harness is built from individual wires, cut to length, crimped, and inserted into connectors, a manual process that is tedious, error-prone, and doesn't scale well.
And these wire harnesses introduce extraordinary complications, especially in the early stages of development and bring up of a vehicle, because when we're trying to bring up this entire system and we see that it's not working properly, we don't know whether it's a problem with the software, with the controller, the processor, any of the endpoints in this entanglement of wires, and so we have to go and debug everything all at once.
With the Model 3, Tesla started designing an increasing share of our controllers. By merging controllers together, we're able to simplify the design with a significant reduction in wire count and weight. Going from S to 3, we reduced the wire harness by 17 kilograms. Compared to Model S. Just to put that into context, our VP of Engineering, Lars, will deliver a bottle of your favorite spirit to your desk if you manage to save a kilogram of weight from the car. So this improvement cost him quite a lot. With introduction of Model 3 in 2017, we deleted relays and fuses from the car in favor of e-fuses. E-fuses replace moving parts with solid-state transistors. They provide fine-grained control of the power system to software and allow software to do advanced things like load shedding in the car under adverse conditions. In 2022, we completed the transition from lead-acid batteries to lithium-ion batteries, and which use a new toolless connector. We expect lithium-ion batteries to last for the life of the car, so don't expect anyone to wake up to a dead battery ever again. At Tesla, we're always trying to improve every single component in the car, and a nice example of that is the 15-inch display that was originally shipped in the 2017 Model 3. Over time, the cost of the display has gone down 24%. We've been able to reduce the weight by 12%, and we've reduced the power by 33%. At the same time, we've increased the brightness of the display by 50% and improved the color accuracy. One of the changes that we're looking to make right now is to change something that's been steady for the last 60 years, 12 volts. With Cybertruck and all future Tesla platforms, we will be moving to 48 volts. This reduces the current needed by a factor of 4. And since power loss in the harness is resistance times the square of the current, a 4x reduction in current leads to a 16x reduction in lost power while distributing energy in the car. That allows for smaller wires, smaller e-fuses, and smaller controllers. It also allows us to make those heat sinks smaller, or in many cases, remove it completely. 48 volts is the future for low voltage design at Tesla, and likely the rest of the industry in due course.
We welcome and encourage other OEMs and the entire supplier network to join us on this evolution.
David Lau, he talked about software development within the company. Again, another 10-minute speech. Obviously, he talked about software updates to cars. That's what we already have experienced. He talked about the app as interacting with the car's software. But he also talked about software in the larger context.
We've had sophisticated, anonymized data logging and telemetry capabilities that allow us to understand how the fleet is doing, what customers are doing with it, and how it's responding in the field to that usage. These two capabilities combined, OTA updates and data insights, give us the ability to iterate quickly on our software and to maximize the amount that we learn and the progress that we make in every one of those iterations. We've used these capabilities to inform countless design decisions in both software and hardware.
Yeah, one example is that we were able to monitor and track the use of the sunroof in our cars and found that our customers never use their sunroof, so we made this easy decision to remove it.
Very barely, yeah. We haven't had sunroofs for a while. As another example, we are able to use our collision data to design our crash safety systems for what happens in the real world, far beyond what regulatory and consumer ratings tests prescribe. And then furthermore, we're able to use that data to recreate in simulation all of those crashes every single time we make a change to the vehicle's design or to the software that controls the airbags and other restraint systems. Here on this graph, the gray dots that show up first are specific crash tests that are prescribed by regulatory and consumer ratings agencies throughout the whole world. The rest of the color that fills in around and on top of it, those represent the crashes that we've seen happen in the real world. Those are what we design for and what we test to. As another example, we've analyzed patterns in the way the fleet drives and charges to optimally size battery packs for our next generations of vehicles. And you'll hear lots of other examples throughout the rest of the day about how we're using data to inform decisions in the product and in manufacturing. For example, we recently released a feature in Model S and X that automatically, predictively adjusts and raises the suspension for ride comfort before the car hits a section of rough road. We do that by leveraging the fleet to generate a map of road roughness everywhere our cars drive. Sounds pretty simple, but requires coordination of software across a number of different components inside and outside of the car. The restraint control module, whose inertial measurement unit senses the road roughness, the autopilot computer, whose GPS module and localizer figure out where the car is in the world, our navigation server, which aggregates the anonymized telemetry from the fleet and annotates our map with things like updated speed limits, lane topology, and now, road roughness. The onboard navigation engine, which looks ahead of the route that the car is traveling on and determines whether things are about to get rough. And finally, the air suspension controller, which takes all of those factors into account and decides continuously whether it is appropriate to adjust the suspension for ride comfort. And before we released this feature to the world, we sent prototype versions of it to the entire fleet that ran passively in the background, sending us anonymous data about every time it would have engaged, which taught us exactly how it was going to behave in the wild, in every environment, in every circumstance. So far, you've heard me talk a lot about how we leverage our software systems to iterate quickly on the customer-facing product. But what I haven't talked about, and what we haven't said much about publicly in general, is how we leverage these capabilities in our own internal operations. So for example, in the early days of manufacturing Model S, we very quickly realized that there are a lot of different ways you could misassemble a car. You could forget to plug in a wire, you could not fully set a connector, you could pull a part from the wrong bin. So when we designed our manufacturing processes for Model 3 and all of our other vehicles going forward, we took a page from the software playbook, which says, test early and test often. And we applied that mantra to every single car that we build at every step of the assembly line. So now, when a production associate plugs something into the car, the central car computer sees that connection, confirms that it's the correct part for the type of car that's supposed to be built, installs a software update if necessary, checks configurations and calibrations, and runs a barrage of tests on that thing and all the other things that are connected to it. And if it finds an anomaly that can't be fixed purely with software, it throws an alert immediately that is displayed prominently on the vehicle's display, as well as sent to back-end command and control systems, so that a human can come over and fix the problem before the rest of the car gets built on top of it. And that has been a whirlwind tour through some of the things that we're doing behind the scenes to enable the efficiency, cost reduction, and speed that we are going to need for our next phase of growth and for the next phase of the master plan.
Then Elon Musk himself arrived on stage to give us a little update on Optimus Prime.
Yeah, this is the next latest video.
It's kind of weird seeing the arms and legs just separate. We have a whole lab full of arms and legs. worth bearing in mind that when we did AI Day, this version of Optimus didn't walk at all. So the rate of improvement here, I think, is quite significant. It's obviously not doing parkour, but it is walking around, and we have multiple copies, I suppose, of Optimus. The thing that I think Tesla brings to the table that others don't have is that we have the real-world AI. We're the most advanced in real-world AI. So the same AI that drives the car, which you can think of the car really as a robot on wheels, and this is a robot on legs. So as we solve real-world AI, and I don't think there's anyone even close to Tesla on solving real-world AI. That same computer and software goes into Optimus. So it's not that helpful to have a humanoid robot if you have to program every individual action. It needs to be able to walk around autonomously and solve tasks. You should be able to instruct it in simple things by showing visually what the robot needs to do, or just telling it what to do. So I think that's a key advantage that we have. And then we also are good at designing things for manufacturing and then manufacturing itself. So the actuators in Optimus are all custom designed Tesla actuators. So we designed the electric motor, the gearbox, the power electronics, obviously the battery pack, and everything else that goes into Optimus. We were quite surprised to find how little was available off the shelf. Because there's a vast number of electric motors, gearboxes and whatnot, that are available in the world. And we found none of them were useful in a humanoid robot, literally none. And so the same team that designed the groundbreaking electric motors that are in the Model S Plaid designed the actuators in the robot. For practical purposes, what this means is that we should be able to bring an actual product to market at scale that is useful far faster than anyone else. You start getting into interesting questions of what's the ratio of humans to humanoid robots? I think it might be greater than 1-to-1. It's not even clear what an economy means at that point. Since an economy is output per person times persons, but if output is much higher and there's no limit on persons, then what's the actual limit on the economy? Probably the least understood or appreciated part of what we're doing at Tesla, but will probably be worth significantly more than the car side of things long term.
Tom Zhu came up. He's in charge of global manufacturing, and I was fascinated to hear this. During the time of the investor meeting, had just manufactured their 4 millionth vehicle.
I joined the company back in 2014, and I've been running the company's business in Greater China and APAC. Today, I'm representing all the gigafactories and talk about how we can make more cars and faster. So right now, we have 4 vehicle factories on 3 continents to serve our markets. The total number of manufacturing employees is over 65,000. This is also including our amazing team in Reno. They are making powertrains, battery packs, and drive unit for our vehicle factories. The total installed capacity in all these vehicle factories, about 2 million cars a year. That said, we're always looking for opportunity to grow more capacity from the existing footprint. So you expect this number will grow over time. This is the before and after image showing you the progress we made back in 2019 when we built a gigafactory in Shanghai. So in 9.5 months' time, we built a greenfield project to establish the vehicle factory. And 3 months later, we started to deliver our first customer vehicle. I'm happy to share, early this morning, we hit the 4 million mark for total Tesla ever built. And the 4 millionth vehicle actually built in this factory. When you took a tour on our shop floor, you probably walked past it. All right. So it took us 12 years to build the first million vehicle, and about 18 months to the built the second million. The third million took us 11 months, and just shortly, less than 7 months, we built the 4 million cars. So we're getting better and faster.
Exponential growth.
Every 45 seconds, there's a car rolling off the final assembly line in the factory. So how can we reduce the cycle time, keep improving efficiency? We follow the philosophy Elon shared about building rockets, which is questioning, basically find the right problem to solve, and we start with delete, simplify, then we try to accelerate, pressurize the line, and find if the solution actually work. And at last, we think about the automation. 4 factories, not enough. If we want to hit the 20 million car a year target, we're going to keep building new factories, new lines, and that will come up with new product as well. And with all gigafactories now in one organization, we'll be able to replicate unified ideas across factories. Also, we will help the new factories ramp faster and also produce a better quality at a lower cost.
The ultimate goal being an annual run rate or production rate of 20 million vehicles in total. That's the Semi and the Cybertruck and the S3XY, the new second generation car, maybe a van. There was an intriguing little graphic that had what we consider to be the $25,000 car under a blanket, but beside it, something a little taller. And the speculation, of course, is rampant that that's going to be a van, much like the Sprinter or similar vans. So 20 million per year, that's their goal. And they've never lost sight of it. And they're always pushing to reach it. Finally, Zach Kirkhorn came up and talked about the financials. And this was a really interesting talk. In fact, it was longer. I think it was, 15 minutes instead of 10.
All right. So this is our last section of our prepared remarks today. Kind of take what we've discussed today and summarize it at the corporate level for our financials. When we were preparing for today, folks were asking, well, Zach, what should we talk about? And really the only guidance we gave folks is, well, talk about the things that you're working on and talk about it in the context of the master plan. And what did almost everybody talk about today in great detail? All of the work that they're doing to take cost out. Because in this industry, in this business, you survive or you die based upon the ability to manage your costs. And so I'd like to talk about cost as well. If we look at our longest running scale production product, this is the Model 3. We reached 5,000 cars per week, which was our design capacity in mid-2018. And since then, we've taken 30% of cost out of this product. And there's 2 points I want to make about this. The first is that cost reduction, as you have heard throughout the course of the day, is deeply ingrained in our culture. And I think one of the most important reasons why we are here today as a company. The second point that I want to make is that when we're working on cost reduction, it's easy just to take cost out and make our products worse. But we have to take cost out and improve our products at the same time. This is the hard thing to do, but it's the necessary thing to do to continue to move forward. And if you look at a version of a Model 3 that we built today, and you compare it back to a Model 3 that we built in 2018, there's a long list of improvements that we put into the car while also taking cost out of the product. Cost reduction doesn't just come from one place. There's no silver bullet here. We pushed the boundaries on volume with the Model 3 program, increasing volume 3x over this period of time. We've improved productivity. So in our Fremont factory, we are twice as productive now as we were in mid-2018. We've made a lot of progress on overhead efficiencies and product improvements, as we've discussed, and a long list of other things, including localization, our factory in Shanghai. And as we ramp up volume and as we find efficiencies, we work with our suppliers to do the same. And that leads to material cost reductions that improve the affordability of our products. And as we look forward to our next-gen vehicle, our target is to reduce 50% of cost, and we've talked about that a bit earlier today. Going from the Model S and X platform to the 3 and Y platform, we took out 50% of cost, so the task here is to do it again. And this is very important because as we improve affordability, the number of customers who have access to our products dramatically increases. And as we link this back to our master plan, It enables an exponential growth in our volume with linear reductions in the cost of our products. And so in order to take 50% of the cost out of the product, we have to go through everything. But more importantly than just the cost of the car up front, it's really important to think about the lifetime cost of the products. This chart here is showing what the total cost of ownership per mile is over the course of 5 years. Financing costs, insurance costs, the cost of power. Drew talked a little bit about that with the plants that we're doing in Texas, wear and tear and maintenance on the cars, et cetera. And we're already at a place today in the US where a base Model 3 on a cost per mile basis is less than a Toyota Corolla, which is the highest selling car in the world. And as we move towards our next gen platform, we will continue to reduce this. And so this is a product that we expect to have substantially lower cost per mile than the highest volume products in the world. The next thing on cost reduction I want to talk about is operating expenses. We spend a lot of time on our earnings calls talking about gross margins and product cost. We don't spend a lot of time talking about OpEx, but I think this is one of the really important parts of our story. So since 2018, we've reduced our non-GAAP OpEx 60% as a percent of revenue and 75% on a per delivered car basis. This is quite staggering. If we look at the SG&A side of this, I think the story here is pretty dramatic. So we're showing here a comparison of SG&A per car delivered compared to the traditional auto industry, which is both an OEM and the dealership network. And our estimates are that we're 60 to 70% lower on a per car basis. And if you turn this into dollars, this is many thousands of dollars per car. This is part of the reason why on the last earnings call, I made the comment that we think about operating margin more so than gross margin as a company. The integration that we have here on the SG&A side, particularly with vertical integration into our dealership network, this provides efficiencies that give us a competitive advantage from a cost structure standpoint relative to other companies. If we go back a little bit in time and we talk about when we launched Model 3 in the Fremont factory, we went from 2,000 cars per week, which was S and X, adding 5,000 a week to that for Model 3 got us to 7,000 cars a week. You've heard some folks here today talk about production hell. What I don't think we've ever talked about as a company is back office operations hell, which also happened at the same time. And it's 7,000 cars a week, 350,000 cars a year. We want to go to 20 million cars a year, and we're struggling at 7,000. And we're saying to ourselves, we have to completely rethink the way that we're managing our back office operations if we have any hope of efficiently scaling this company. And so this began a process that we're still continuing to work on today, but it's something that we refer to as the Tesla operating system. So in the same way that we're vertically integrated into the software that manages our cars, we've also vertically integrated into the software that runs our company. And all of our major departments in the company are using, not all of them yet, but almost all of them are using our in-house software. Most recently, we removed third-party recruiting software, and we're now running our own recruiting software as a company. And this matters a lot because rather than having a complex web of third-party systems that are generic solution that take a lot of effort to customize for our particular needs, we've been able to put in place with an in-house applications engineering team dedicated lightweight software that does only what we needed to do and nothing more. So all of this work on cost reduction is extremely important because we have a lot of money to spend ahead of us to achieve our goals within the master plan. And so we've estimated what we think the total cost to get there will be, and there's certainly error bars around these numbers as we continue to progress and innovate, but of this we've spent about $28 billion of that so far in the history of the company. Maybe this total investment looks large. I actually think it's quite small relative to our ambitions. And if you look at our 2022 operating cash flows and you just say, well, let's assume some modest growth to that, maybe not all that much, the ability to pay for this level of investment from the forecast that we have is very achievable for us. So to wrap up the finance portion of the presentation today, we use innovation at an intense level to drive costs down and improve the efficiency of the business. And the reason this is so important is it allows us to improve product affordability. And this is particularly the case when we move to our next generation platform. Improving affordability allows us to comfortably make investments that grow volume. That volume generates cash that then allows us to make more investments. And as we integrate that going forward, it's our belief as a leadership team here at Tesla that we're going to achieve unprecedented scale in the manufacturing space. And this is what's ultimately required to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy.
This presentation was a true eye-opener, and I can strongly recommend that you follow the link below and go and watch it yourself. With this little primer that I've given here, it'll make a lot more sense to you, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So thanks again for supporting the channel. Look forward to chatting with you again next time, and until then, cheers for now.